Okay, this is part 66 of Nos4a2. The kitchen. When they sat back down at the table, Vic took Lou's hand, the most natural thing in the world. She was surprised to feel the heat of his chubby fingers, and she looked again at his washed-out, sweat-slick face. She recognized that he looked seriously ill, but took it for fear. There were 5 of them in the kitchen now. Lou and Vic and Hunter sat at the table. Daltrey leaned against the kitchen counter, squeezing his alcoholic's nose in a hanky. Officer Chitra stood in the doorway, had hustled the other cops out at Hunter's command. "You're Louis Camaraderie," Hunter said. She spoke like the director of the school play, letting Lou know who he would be playing in the spring performance. "You're the father." "Guilty," Lou said. "Say again?" Hunter asked. "Guilty as charged," Lou said. "I'm the dad. Who are you? Are you like a social worker?" "I'm an FBI agent. My name is Tabitha Hutter. A lot of the guys in the office call me Tabby the Hutt." She smiled slightly. "That's funny. A lot of guys in the place I work call me Jabba the Hutt. Only they do it because I'm a fat shit." "I thought you were in Denver," Hutter said. "Missed my flight." "No shit," said Daltrey. "Something come up?" Hutter said. "Detective Daltrey, I'll conduct the Q&A. Thank you." Daltrey reached into the pocket of his coat. "Does anyone mind if I smoke?" "Yes," Hutter said. Daltrey held the pack for a moment staring at her, then put it back in his pocket. There was a bland, unfocused quality to his eyes that reminded Vic of the membrane that slid across a shark's eyes right before he chomped into a seal. "Why did you miss your plane, Mr. Camaraderie?" Hutter asked. "Because I heard from Wayne." "You heard from him?" "He called me from the car on his iPhone. He said they were trying to shoot Vic, Mannix and the other guy. We only talked for a minute. He had to hang up because Mannix and the other fellow were walking back to the car. He was scared, really scared, but holding it together. He's a little man, you know. He's always been a little man." Lou bunched his fist up on the table and lowered his head. He grimaced, as if he felt a sharp twinge of pain somewhere in his abdomen, and blinked, and tears dripped onto the table. It came over him all of a sudden without warning. "He has to be a grown-up, because me and Vic did such a shitty job of being grown-ups ourselves." Vic put her hands over his. Hutter and Daltrey exchanged a look, hardly seemed to notice Lou dissolving into tears. "Do you think your son turned the phone off after he talked to you?" Hutter asked. "I thought if it had a SIM card in it, it didn't matter if it was on or off," Daltrey said. "I thought you federal people had a workaround." "You could use his phone to find him?" Vic said, her pulse quickening. Hutter ignored her, said to Daltrey. "We can have that done. It would take a while. I'd have to call Boston. But if it's an iPhone and it's turned on, we can use the Find My iPhone function to locate him right now, right here." She lifted her iPad slightly. "Right," Lou said. "That's right. I set up Find My iPhone the day we bought it for him because I didn't want him to lose the thing." He came around the table to look over Hutter's shoulder at her screen. His complexion was not improved by the unnatural glow of the monitor. "What's his email address and password?" Hutter asked, turning her head to look up at Lou. He reached out with one hand to type it himself, but before he could, the FBI agent took a hold of his wrist. She pressed 2 fingers into his skin as if taking his pulse. Even from where she sat, Vic could see a spot where the skin gleamed and seemed to have a splash of dried paste on it. Hutter shifted her gaze to Lou's face. "You had an EKG done this evening?" "I fainted. I got upset. It was like a panic attack, dude. Some crazy son of a bitch has my kid. This shit happens to fat guys." Until now, Vic had been too focused on Wayne to give much thought to Lou, how gray he looked, how exhausted. But at this, Vic felt struck through with sudden, sick apprehension. "Oh, Lou, what do you mean? You fainted?" "It was after Wayne hung up on me. I kind of went down for a minute. I was fine, but airport security made me sit on the floor with an EKG, make sure I wasn't going to vapor lock on them." "Did you tell them your kid had been kidnapped?" Daltrey asked. Hutter flashed him a warning look that Daltrey pretended not to see. "I'm not sure what I said to them. I was sort of confused at first, like dizzy. I know I told them my kid needed me. I know I told them that. All I could think was I had to get to my car. At some point, they said they were going to put me in an ambulance, and I told them to go, have fun with themselves. So I got up and walked away. It's possible a guy grabbed my arm, and I dragged him a few feet. I was in a hurry." So did you talk to the police at the airport about what had happened to your son? Daltrey asked. Didn't you think you could get here faster if you had a police escort? It didn't even cross my mind. I wanted to talk to Vic first, Lou said, and Vic saw Daltrey and Hutter trade another glance. Why did you want to talk to Victoria first? Hutter asked. What does it matter? Vic cried. Can we just think about Wayne? Yes, Hutter said, blinking, looking back down at her iPad. That's right. Let's keep the focus on Wayne. How about that password? Vic pushed back her chair as Lou poked at the touchscreen with one thick finger. She rose, came around the corner of the table to look. Her breathing was fast and short. She felt her anticipation so keenly it was like being cut. Hutter's screen loaded the Find My iPhone page, which showed a map of the globe, pale blue continents against a backdrop of dark blue ocean. In the upper right corner, a window announced, Wayne's iPhone. Locating. 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 Located. A featureless field of gray blanked out the image of the globe. A glassy blue dot appeared in the silver smoothness. Squares of landscape began to appear, the map redrawing itself to show the location of the iPhone in close-up. Vic saw the blue dot traveling on a road identified as the St. Nick Parkway. Everyone was leaning in, Daltrey so close to Vic she could feel him pressing against her rear, feel his breath tickling her neck. He smelled of coffee and nicotine. Zoom out, Daltrey said. Hutter tapped the screen once, and again, and again. That's what the map looks like that they're looking at right now. Okay. The map depicted a continent that somewhat resembled America. It was as if someone had made a version of the United States out of bread dough and then punched it in the center. In this new version of the nation, Cape Cod was almost half the size of Florida and the Rocky Mountains and looked like the Andes. 1,000 miles of grotesquely tortured earth, great splinters of stone heaved up against one another. The country as a whole, however, had substantially shriveled, collapsing toward the center. Most of the great cities were gone, but other points of interest had appeared in their place. In Vermont, there was a dense forest built up around a place called Orphanhenge. In New Hampshire, there was a spot marked the Tree House of the Mind. A little north of Boston, there was something called Lovecraft Keyhole. It was a crater in the rough shape of a padlock. In Maine, around the Lewiston-Auburn Dairy area, there was a place called Pennywise Circus. A narrow highway titled the Night Road led south, reddening the farther it went, until it was a line of blood trickling into Florida. The St. Nick Parkway was particularly littered with stopping points. In Illinois, watchful snowmen. In Kansas, giant toys. In Pennsylvania, the House of Sleep and the graveyard of what might be. And in the mountains of Colorado, high in the peaks, the point at which the St. Nick Parkway dead ended, Christmas Land. The continent itself drifted in a sea of black, star-littered wastes. The map was captioned not United States of America, but United Inscapes of America. The blue dot twitched, moving through what should have been western Massachusetts toward Christmas Land. But Unified Inscapes didn't correspond exactly to America itself. It was probably 150 miles from Lincoln, New Hampshire to Springfield, Massachusetts, but on this map, it looked barely half that. They all stared. Daltrey took his hanky from his pocket, gave his nose a thoughtful squeeze. Any of you see Candyland down there? He made a harsh throat-clearing sound that was not quite a cough, not quite a laugh. Vic felt the kitchen going away. The world at the edges of her vision had a The world at the edges... It's been a long day. The world at the edges of her vision was a distorted blur. The iPad and the table remained in crisp focus, but were curiously distant. She needed something to anchor her. She felt in danger of coming unmoored from the kitchen floor, a balloon slipping out of a child's hand. She took Lou's wrist, something to hold onto. He had always been there when she needed something to hold onto. When she looked at him, though, she saw a reflection of her own ringing shock. His pupils were pinpricks. His breath was short and labored. In a surprisingly normal tone of voice, Hutter said, I don't know what I'm looking at here. Does this mean anything to either of you two? This curious map? Christmas Land? The St. Nick Parkway? Does it? Lou asked, staring helplessly at Vic. What he was really asking, Vic understood, was, do we tell her about Christmas Land? About the things you believed when you were crazy? No, Vic breathed, answering all questions, spoken and unspoken at the same time.